Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations about Network Marketing. And as usual, I'm BK, and on the other end, hi, Dr. Wayne.
Hi, BK. Hi, everyone.
So we are back for another interesting episode, and we are kind of continuing from the last episode that we did, when we talked about how the physical body is actually absolutely key in helping us to maintain or achieve peak performance, right? I think, in a sense, life is like a sport, and if we are sportsmen or sports people, we want to keep our bodies in tip-top shape so that we can always perform at our peak performance.
Well, that's what you call live. The photo just fell down behind me.
Well, that's why we call it candid conversations. And if you have been following us for a while, you would have noticed the evolution of our show from the very first season, and now we are already in season 3. And naturally, even the sound has evolved. The sound staging has evolved, the effects, the graphics, the pre-show reel, and of course, even the visual representation, right? So, and it's a good segue as well, Dr. Wayne. Those of you, if you're keen to find the previous episodes, please look us up at networkmarketerpodcast.com, where we actually would also be able to provide you with show notes, right? Well, that's fine. I think it's a good start to the show.
And I suppose, as you said, BK, it's a part of evolution. And as we all know, in any type of business, network marketing, no matter what it be, it is that evolution. And what we can do is, when we make mistakes, is basically to maybe, there's usually 3 ways that a human brain will respond due to prior to the age of 7. One will go into the fetal position and basically hide and say, oh no, that shouldn't have happened, and be all embarrassed. And the other way then is to become, the egocentric, or the, stick out the chest and say, no, I didn't do that. That wasn't my fault. And then, of course, we have the mid of the range, which is, oh, there it is. That happened. So let's move through this, and let's just see what we can do and learn from it as well. And that's what this podcast is all about. What can we do to help you to move from A to B, whether it be just starting out as a new associate, to get to those first executive ranks, or whether you're in a mid-tier executive ranks, helping you maybe to get to higher ranks and even beyond. And the major thing I think that's really important is to be really, really happy with who you are, even when you do make a mistake, no matter what that mistake may be. Own it. The more you become responsible for who you are, life certainly gets easier. And we talked about this a little bit more in detail last week, didn't we, BK, with regards to the topic last week was literally about how your physical body is the key to success in 2021. And we went into that in great detail. And as BK just mentioned before, if you do want to watch or listen to that, watch that in more detail, we've got that available for you. And we went into then how the amygdala specifically holds certain memories. And this is the fight and flight response of our brain. And when it actually gets bigger, it actually inflames because of all these memories that will actually come in. And remembering most of who we are, 90% of who we are, happened, or the way our subconscious thinks happened prior to the age of 7. And what happens through life is we keep on reinforcing those things that may be negative in our life, that then keeps on holding us back from achieving the goals that we actually want. And the amygdala holds us, and we went deeper and deeper into how the amygdala does this, and then we also talked about the hippocampus as well, another part of the brain. And when the amygdala gets bigger, this can then create things like anxiety and panic attacks and not wanting to move forward. You get basically, you feel yourself in overwhelm, I suppose is the best way of putting it. And then if that amygdala keeps on swelling and becoming chronically inflamed, and then what happens, unfortunately, is the hippocampus now shrinks. And this is where we lose focus, our mental clarity can decrease, etc. And as mentioned, we went deep into this. And then we went into these emotions then are then trapped into the physical body. And what happens is our physical body then holds these emotions, and then the holding of those emotions literally become our anchor. And then we went deeper and deeper into it. So what I want to do this time is talk about another gland, or another part of the brain that I believe is far more important, and this is the pineal gland. And the pineal gland, from a functional point of view, from biochemistry or the medical world, basically is a major gland that produces melatonin. So, and this is a serotonin-derived hormone which helps with our sleep patterns and our circadian rhythm cycles. So this is when we get up in the morning, for example, when we want to eat and drink. The menstrual cycle in women would be an example of another cycle or circadian rhythm. Our sleep pattern, as mentioned, is another one. And the pineal gland looks after this. And the interesting thing about melatonin and its antagonistic hormone called cortisol, or its opposite hormone called cortisol, is melatonin doesn't like light or green. So guess what happens at nighttime? It should be dark and there's no green because we can't see light, can't see colors at night, which is interesting. Whereas during the day, melatonin is not secreted as much. It still is a little bit, but it's basically shut off. And the main reason is because the day produces light and there's heaps of green in terms of greenery. So, and cortisol is stimulated by light and green color. So this is when we wake up in the morning, these colors stimulate our cortisol production. This is where we should feel absolutely primed for a full day by the time 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning comes along, as long as the circadian rhythm of the pineal gland has allowed us to have a good night's sleep. And the interesting thing of the shape of the pineal gland, it resembles a pine cone. And this is where it gets its name, the pineal gland, being pine cone. So that's the functions from a Western medicine perspective. And interestingly, the pineal gland was described as the seat of the soul by a gentleman by the name of, sorry if I get this wrong, René Descartes. From 1596 to 1650 he lived. And it is, as said, located in the center of the brain. But he basically was one of the first to look at it from a metaphysical point of view in terms of seat of the soul. So from here, it's really important to understand that the pineal gland is the doorway between the conscious world that we see and feel, and then the metaphysical world, or the world that we call the different types of laws that we've already gone through in other episodes. So it's our doorway to be able to bring about that which we want in our life. Our abundance is determined by this gland, for example. Our ability to be able to climb up the ranks within network marketing is determined by this pineal gland. And it's been known as the third eye, and for many, many reasons, but the major reason is because it's located basically right in the middle. And if you do any type of meditation or learn about meditation, they try and get you to look at a point in sort of the mid part of the forehead, but in the mid part of the brain while you're meditating. And so they suggest that this is the connection between the physical world and the spiritual world. Or, to put it another way, it's our connection between receiving abundance, if it's functioning correctly, or unfortunately not receiving that which we may have set down in our goals, etc. It can be the thing that will stop us back, unfortunately. So think of it like this is the way we can now let go of that anchor that we've talked about in many other episodes as well. So interesting, hey, BK, in terms of the pineal gland, where it's located, and the metaphysics have been looking at and getting us to look at this particular area of the brain for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
So, Dr. Wayne, I mean, I have a quick question from, I guess, even if I'm a listener, I might have a question where, how would I know that my pineal glands are in a healthy state or not in a healthy state?
So there'll be a few ways you would know. So if we look at the physical function of the gland, if you're not sleeping well, therefore your pineal gland is not working that well, number one. Because it looks after the serotonin production, that's our happy hormones as well. Therefore, if you're more anxious or more upset, it can be this particular gland's not working for us, so to speak. If we have more dark thoughts or negative thoughts, is another way of thinking of it. If we have all our goals written down and we've done all the different things that all the greats have talked about in goal setting, number one, you write it down. Number two, you then create a collage. Number three is you visualize it and you feel it. And number four, it should come to you. So if things aren't coming your way, then that's another way of probably knowing that your pineal gland is not open. Or some people have actually said something like, I'll have a few good things happen, and then I'm looking over my shoulder looking for the bad thing to happen to me. So, and remembering we've spoken about before that science suggests that there's about 70,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are pessimistic or negative, and 90% are about the past. And those past thoughts are typically what happened prior to the age of 7, but they are reinforced by different activities that may now occur later in life, even though we may not think of that situation that may have occurred prior to the age of 7. For example, mum and dad may have said something like, money doesn't grow on trees, for example. You're not going to get very far in your life. And what happens then, you may have never remembered that conversation with your parents, for example. But what you do know is that it's hard. Money, I find I'm losing jobs. I'm finding I can't get ahead. I'm finding that it's really difficult making money to be able to get ahead in whatever I do. So there's probably other ways that we could look at, but right now they're the major ones that I would think of.
So it's kind of like you judge a tree by the fruits, right? So if you are getting the results you want in life, and you are getting adequate rest and sleep, and you're generally a happy person, probably a good sign that your pineal glands are working or functioning in a good manner. Of course, the second follow-up question, Dr. Wayne, is if we are noticing signs that our pineal glands may not be optimally functioning, what can we do to improve it?
Yes. So what I'd like to do before I totally answer that is I want to now, remembering one of the things we spoke about last time, and I've spoken about it many times, is why is the physical body so important? And from all the ancient scriptures, it basically says, or the ancient text, it says the light of the universe will not enter if the physical body is impure. And what we're talking about here, I can talk about every organ having that same challenge, but we're really talking about the pineal gland here. And where I want to take you back to is, why is the pineal gland affected, as we've kind of talked about, but I want to go into the physical realm, into what happens with the pineal gland. Okay, so the first thing that really happens is the body becomes acidic. So the urine pH of the body should sit around 7 to 7.2, the same as the saliva. This is my way of describing it. If the urine pH is sitting at 5.8 or lower, it's equivalent to 160 kilometer an hour or 100 mile an hour driving a fire. So think of the pH is the wind speed. The fire is the chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, or your symptoms. So I'm not going to go into the symptoms. I'm just going to come back to this important concept of balancing one's pH, especially if you know you're acidic. Now, when you're acidic, a number of things now will happen. Science suggests that up to 80% of all oxygen now can't be used properly. So now we create more oxidative stress in our body. Diseases like cardiovascular disease, heart attack, strokes, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, fat around the middle, overweight, obesity, metabolic syndrome, for example, just to name a few, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, is the end result of oxidative stress that's been there for a long time. Why does oxidative stress? Most of oxidative stress occurs because the body's been acidic for long periods of time. So number one is we become more oxidized. Number two, 50% of food now can't be digested, up to 50% of food now can't be digested properly. So this is the bloating, the wind, the GIT problems, the irritable bowel, the leaky gut, the other symptoms that you may have heard about or feel, the nausea, the upset, the heartburn, the ulcers even, all these digestive complaints is 50% of them can be due to the body being acidic. The other thing that now happens is the body now starts to dehydrate. And when the body dehydrates, yes, you can drink water. Some people want to drink a lot of water, and other people don't get any information that they need more water, but you can tell that they have a problem with dehydration because they got cracks on the bottom of their lips. And this is typically telling us that there's acidic problems, and also it tells us serious vitamin D deficiencies as well. Now, the next thing that then happens is we lose signaling molecules from our powerhouse of our body called the mitochondria. So think of the mitochondria as the powerhouse, the same as a motor car needs the motor to have the energy to drive a car. We need energy, and it's made by the mitochondria, but it also sends out these things called signaling molecules that tell cells what to do. And when we're acidic, we actually lose the ability to tell our cells what to do. Now the last bit. Now what happens is the body is acidic. So the body now wants to be alkaline. What does it do? The major alkalizing minerals are magnesium, potassium, and calcium. So the body goes, well, what's the best? Magnesium, potassium in that order. Interesting. But the problem with magnesium, potassium, they're water-soluble molecules, which means that as we have them, if the body doesn't use them, it just excretes them, and there's no real storage spaces for magnesium and potassium. So the body goes, I'm still acidic. I haven't got enough magnesium and potassium. So what do I need? I need calcium. So what it does, it basically gets calcium out of fingernails, teeth, and bones. So you notice ridges in your fingernails, and you can notice just maybe feeling more bone pain, that type of stuff. Maybe nothing because you don't know it's happening. But what happens is this free calcium now is unbound. Now what happens is the first thing people notice is they get restrictive muscular, they become more restrictive in their muscles and their movements. They're not as flexible. The second thing now happens is the calcium now goes onto the artery walls, and it can be a cause of hardening of the arteries, blood pressure problems, and that type of stuff. Then it can create problems like kidney stones and gallstones. Then it can go on and then actually create osteoarthritis and osteoporosis, one because it's coming out of bone and this free calcium floating around now comes back onto bone, so they call it osteoporosis or osteoarthritis. You can have both or one or the other. And the most interesting thing now is, drum roll, is this free calcium that shouldn't be in the body now enters the blood-brain barrier, through the blood-brain barrier, enters the brain, and now goes to the pineal gland and coats it. And when the pineal gland is now coated, think of it like a light bulb. So if I've got a light bulb, and if I turn it on, I'm going to light the room. So think of the pineal gland as your intuitiveness, your light to the universe, your ability to go from in good meditation to allow you to get abundance, all the different things you want in your life. But say now with a real light bulb, I paint it black, say half black with some paint, and I let it dry and I turn it on, I'm only going to get not much light coming in the room. And this is what happens when calcium unfortunately gets onto the pineal gland, and then it can create tumors and growths and different things like that. But the major theme here is that because the pH or the body is acidic, it does all. You notice that it's trying to protect the pineal gland by giving people symptoms early on in the piece before it does that. Now, can it do it early? Of course it can. It can bypass the flexibility, it can bypass the bone, meaning osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, go straight to the brain and actually cause problems in the brain area. Therefore, lack of sleep, your body's not, your being is not attracting wealth into you, you're not having the relationships you want, etc. Now, from there, the interesting thing is we look at science now. There's a research that goes back to 2015, and this was looking at over 31,000 adults who underwent screening with regards to all-cause mortality and cardiovascular risk. And being acidic was the leading cause. Interesting. Okay, 31,000 adults were screened, and in conclusion, higher metabolic acid load was associated with an increased all-cause and cardiovascular mortality. And then if you go into science, pH imbalance in brain cells may contribute to Alzheimer's disease. Now, for those people who want, in the show notes, I've got the where you can go and have a read of this further if you want to do that. So the science is basically now backing up what ancient medicine has been saying for thousands and thousands of years. And even if you're acidic, it can then cause deficiency problems like diabetes, heart disease, depression, memory loss, migraines, cancer, and an emphasis of pain through your body, just aches and pains all through your body. So just going through that again, when you're acidic, your body can't digest food properly, oxygen can't be absorbed properly, the body becomes dehydrated, signaling molecules decline, and then what happens is free calcium becomes more of an enemy and then coats the pineal gland. And just getting back to your question then, BK, how can we activate our pineal gland? How can we improve its function? But before I get to that, is there anything you just want to chat about, go through before?
So I'm guessing that the good news is that we can reverse the damage that has been done because we were not aware of it in the past, right? And if you have watched some of our earlier episodes before, I think Dr. Wayne and I both like the word mistake, because mistakes can be corrected, and that's the best thing that you can know about mistakes. So this is a mistake of the intellect, and this is a mistake that we may have not been aware of. But now that you are aware of, the next part, of course, Dr. Wayne is going to walk us through how we can help to reverse some of these mistakes that we may have been unwittingly committing, right?
Yes. And yeah, that's right, BK. And for those people who haven't heard the ancient way of describing how abundance doesn't come into our life, remember we talked about it in this podcast with regards to 90% of our thoughts. This is the way Western medicine describes it. 90% of our thoughts are programmed prior to the age of 7, but ancient medicine suggests that the same thing, but I just put it in different words, as best BK just mentioned, is the cause to all disharmony, the cause to all challenges in our life is known as the mistake of the intellect. And because it's a mistake, it's something that we can then change. And the most important part about everything we're doing here at BK, I'm sure you'll say the same, is we're providing the information to take someone from not knowing and then to someone so they can know. Because once your frontal lobe knows something, then what happens is once it gets that reinforced and you then now believe and you then actually feel as if this is right for you, then you can make those changes and undo the mistake, which is important. Now, everything I'm about to say, you will know. So how can I activate my pineal gland? You will know the answers. There's nothing new. There is nothing new. But the interesting thing is that if we look at 10 people, and if information is given to 10 people, 10 people will take the information on and they'll do with it what they want, whether they use it or whether they don't. But statistically, only one or two people out of the 10 people will actually act upon it and do something about it. And that's just statistics. So the thing now is, are you going to be one of the 8 or will you be one of the 2? And whichever one it is, that's fine with us. It's just understanding that. But once again, that's a mistake of the intellect. So how can I activate my pineal gland? And of course, the first one is to alkalize. Now, if we go back hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, the ancients never even thought about alkalizing, because most of our foods were alkalizing in their effect. So anything that rolls your eyes back, anything that is bitter is alkalizing. Apple cider vinegar, chlorophyll. Even if you think of bush tucker food, the first thing is a bitter taste, and then it might be sweet, or it might be bitter all the way through. So think of pepper. Think of an apple, like a Granny Smith apple, is bitter than sweet. Think of plums, bitter than sweet. So a lot of our foods are bittersweet. So think of anything that is bitter is alkalizing. Apple cider vinegar, as mentioned, lemons or limes. You can put that into water or putting it over your food. Different things like sauerkraut and kimchi, these type of foods. Now, the challenge now is if you've been acidic for a long period of time, some of these foods may react with you. So you just got to work that out yourself, because if you've been acidic for a long period of time, your gut now has fermented unbelievable. And if you've got serious gut problems, some of these foods may not be good for you. But typically, most people can do the lemons and limes, for example. The next one is light exercise, and the ancients have always suggested yoga, and especially if you look at salute to the sun, it's one of the best ways of alkalizing. Even just standing here, BK, and all I'm doing is moving my arms while I breathe in, touching my arms above or my hands above my head, and then breathing out. If I do that 4 or 5 times, that's alkalizing. And that's phenomenal in terms of by using our breath more, we can now alkalize. Taking certain types of supplements like chlorophyll, spirulina. Think of green. So anything that is green is alkalizing. Apple cider vinegar we mentioned before. Doing different detoxes and cleanses. I generally suggest to people to try and do a gut, a liver, immune, and kidney cleanse once a year, even if you're healthy. We've always talked about watching the sunrise. The ancients basically suggest that if you want to maintain fantastic health, just always be there as the sun comes up. Increasing signaling molecules is another way of doing it. But the most important way that has been around for a long period of time is meditation. And we won't have time today, BK, but we've given examples of how to meditate and that before. But meditation is the big one, especially when we're looking up into the third eye, or that part in the middle of the forehead, for example. And the major thing here is, as you're looking there with both your eyes, is just then try and just concentrate on your breath. And all the ancient books that I've ever read have suggested that if you can hold no thought on your breath for 9 seconds, you are a master meditator. So that's how hard it is. 9 seconds, which is interesting. So they're the major 7 ways that you can improve or activate your pineal gland. And of course, get a good night's sleep would be number 8, but that would go hand in hand as well. So they're all written down in the show notes for those people who would like to find out or look at them a little bit more in detail.
That's always good news. 7 simple things that we can do. Number 8 also. 7 simple things that we can do that can help us to get back our pineal glands in tip-top shape, right?
Yes.
So this has been an interesting one, because this is something very practical. I know sometimes we kind of think that network marketing, a lot of it is skills and training and mindset and all those things. Yes, those things are important, right? But at the same time, like one of my favorite and also Dr. Wayne's favorite speakers, Jim Rohn, always says that our body is like the vehicle, right? The vehicle that takes you to where you want to go. And if you're not able to keep your vehicle functioning properly, then you're going to have some issues with getting to where you want to go, right? So I think these 2 episodes have been interesting because it gives us very practical things that we can do to help us maintain our vehicles properly, right? So thank you, Dr. Wayne, for a very, very exciting and interesting, enlightening episode. If you do want the show notes and you want to catch the last episode, for example, please head to networkmarketerpodcast.com, networkmarketerpodcast.com, and just we will actually be able to supply you with the show notes for all the previous episodes as well. I think starting from season 2. Season 1, we didn't have show notes. So my apologies for that. And at the same time, if you are keen to explore some of the spiritual laws or universal laws that we kind of touched a little bit on today, you can go to 5, that's the numerical number 5, 5hiddenreasons.com. Numerical number 5, hiddenreasons.com, where we kind of discuss in depth why most network marketers fail and why you do not have to. So once again, Doc, interesting and very practical episode today. And you know, I like to tell my team this thing. I always like to tell them that whatever new things you learn, how you evaluate it is very simple. If whatever you are doing now is getting you the results that you want, right? Keep doing that. But if whatever you're doing now is not getting you the results that you want, then you need to change it. And you could change it by listening to something, learning something from somewhere else, and then implementing some of those things. So our role here is just to supply you with information and perhaps point in a certain direction. And if we have succeeded in doing that, and you take some of these pointers and then you move on to a higher plane of performance, then we are truly, truly happy for you for that.
Most definitely, yes.
So I'll see you next week, Dr. Wayne. And with that, I'm going to check us out and we'll see you next week.
See